Fintan, Father Fintan, Chappie Kilmurray, Lieutenant Colonel Fintan Kilmurray, Army, retired. Some of the titles by which we all knew our brother Father Fintan. I think we would describe him as intelligent, articulate, a jokester, trickster, witty, hyper, tech-savvy, a movie buff, a dog lover, and I would add, irreverent and dysfunctional. And I think I'm correct in saying that because I spent the night here in the rectory last night and there was a card beside the bed from some friend of his, Fintan, you put the fun in dysfunctional. I would liken Fintan to a diamond. A diamond, when it is discovered, is nothing spectacular. A diamond in the rough. And a diamond in the rough is fairly ordinary. And Fintan was like a diamond, some part of it still left in the rough, but the other side had become polished. And a polished diamond has many facets, and every facet displays a different colour of the rainbow. I don't think any of us ever saw all of the facets of Fintan Kilmurray. We all saw some of them, but I don't think we saw all of them. He displayed different facets to different people. Fintan, of course, as you all know, liked to tell jokes. You know that. So I'll begin with a joke. It's a story that some of you have heard. Two young boys in Ireland, in elementary school, national school as we call it, brothers attending school, were given an assignment by their teacher to write an essay. And the title of the essay was My Dog. And so they went home and they did their essays and they turned them into the teacher. And she gave them identical grades. But she was suspicious. There was a lot of similarities in that essay. And so she quizzed them. And she said, Johnny, did you copy this essay from your little brother Mikey? He said, no, ma'am, I did not. And she said, well, how do you explain that they're almost identical? And she said, miss, it's because we have the same dog. And so there are similarities between what I say and what Tommy just said, and I guarantee you I did not copy him from him. And he did not copy from me because he didn't know what I was going to say. And so, one time Fintan came up to me and out of the blue he said, and he was baiting me. He said, I'm like Bette Midler. And I took the bait. And I said, what does that mean? And he says, I don't play second fiddle to anyone. And the more I thought about that, the more I began to understand Fintan. And if you didn't know that, I don't think you would ever understand Fintan. So Fintan had many facets. Tommy and I are talking about the same person. Fintan and I, we went through seminary at the same time, but we went to different seminaries. He attended St. Patrick's in Thurles, where Pat McDermott and Tom White also had attended. John Burke, who was also ordained at the same time, attended St. Patrick's in Carlow, where most of the Irish priests had attended. There was another priest ordained at the same year from Mississippi. I don't know where he attended. I have never met him since or before. He's no longer in the diocese. Meanwhile, I attended St. Patrick's in Maynooth. And so, towards our diaconate year, Bishop Bronini invited all four of us to come and spend our diaconate year in Mississippi to get acquainted and to get familiar with the culture. Well, Fintan did, and the other priests did, but John Burke and myself chose to stay in Ireland. And so we were ordained. Fintan was ordained on the 10th of June. John Burke busted his knee playing hurling in Ireland, and so he had to delay his ordination. And Bishop Bernini ordained me on the 12th of June. All of this was just after the establishment of this diocese that was established on the 6th of June, 1977. So when it came to appointments, Bishop Bernini took the two guys who had spent their diaconate year in the United States, and he sent John Burke and myself to the Biloxi Diocese. Fintan was assigned to Natchez. It was not a happy assignment. He was assigned to an old pastor set in his ways, and it didn't last long. You know what I'm talking about. Fintan asked to be reassigned. And he asked to be reassigned to the Biloxi Diocese, and there was a deal done that some guy from the Biloxi Diocese went to Jackson, and some guy from the Jackson Fintan came to the Biloxi Diocese. But again, the story repeated itself. Fintan had a number of assignments in Biloxi. He was assigned to St. John's, St. James, Our Lady of Fatima, Our Lady of Victory, St. Pascal. And again, they were not really happy assignments because he was assigned to old Irish pastors, products of Vatican I or pre-Vatican I. Fintan, John Burke and myself were from Vatican II. Different outlook on life, different outlook on the church, different outlook on ministry. And so I would like it that it was like the weather here in South Mississippi. You family from Ireland maybe don't understand the weather in Mississippi, but in the winter time, the cold weather comes south from the Midwest Plains and the warm weather moves into the Gulf of Mexico. Then in the springtime, the cold weather recedes back north and the warm, moist weather comes in from the Gulf of Mexico. And when the two of them meet, it's a recipe for disaster. You have tornadoes. And that's how it was with Fintan and some of those pastors. It was tornadoes. So he had a number of assignments in that short period of time. But he left memories in every one of those parishes. And there is a friend of his who was a pastor, who was a friend of his, who remembers him from St. John's in Gulfport. And his one memory of Fintan is, Fintan loved to go to Mardi Gras parties. And Fintan, his memory of Fintan was Fintan doing a handstand on the back of a pickup truck that was moving in a Mardi Gras. But Fintan and John Burke were young and restless. He wasn't happy with his assignments, the pastors he was assigned to. After a few years of that, Fintan and John Burke got disillusioned and they decided to take a sabbatical. Well, not a sabbatical, a year's leave of absence. And they went to Pensacola for a year because they were lured by the beautiful white sand and the beautiful water of Pensacola, the thought of all over suntans and playing volleyball. And so they went to Pensacola on leave of absence for a year. And I was jealous of them. They were down there in Pensacola, and I was assigned to an old Irish pastor here on the coast. But I went down to visit them, and everything wasn't exactly rosy, because they had to get jobs to make a living, to pay for the apartment, to buy food. And jobs were hard to come by, and they weren't qualified for the jobs that were available in Pensacola. So some of the glamour had wore off. John Burke got a job in a restaurant, working long hours. Fintan got a job in the mall in Pensacola, in a jewellery store, selling ladies' jewellery. But most of his customers, he discovered, were gentlemen, trying to appease their wives, or their girlfriends, or both. Fintan learned a lot of lessons during that period, selling jewellery in a jewellery store. But after a year, the glamour grew off, and they came back to the diocese. John Burke had an assignment in Hattiesburg. Fintan not yet assigned. I invited him to join me in my parish in the Kill Annunciation Parish. I had a big rectory with lots of rooms. And so he did that. And it was there that he met my housekeeper, Lola Liusa. Lola was a character also. And I decided to take the opportunity of Fintan being there, put him in charge of the parish, and I went off to Ireland for a vacation. Fintan used to smoke in those days, Lola smoked in those days. And the two of them hit it off royally. Lola was my housekeeper, she was my bookkeeper, she was my organist, she was everything in the parish. We had just purchased the new computer, the first computer in the parish, of our parish, a new gateway computer with the amber screen on it. Lola knew nothing about computers, nor did I. But Fintan, of course, has always been a whiz in technology, and he was able to help her. And when I came back a month later, they were saying, I thought you'd stay longer. Lola is now 88 years of age. She's still smoking. And every time I call her, she says, do you hear from Fintan? How's Fintan doing? She remembers him very, very well. Shortly after that, Fintan's first assignment was to St. Anne's in Lizana, a little rural parish close by the Kill, and it was there he began to find his feet. It was there he began his collection of dogs. And while he was there, somebody gave him a gift of a horse, of all things, a white horse, that he kept in the baseball field out behind the red. And the white horse, in a baseball field used to like to roll in the wet dirt, with the result that after the rain, the horse looked like a pink unicorn. Without the horn. It was there, I think, that he encountered Ron Herzog. And Ron Herzog, Father Ron Herzog, was in Laurel at the time, asked Fintan to consider being a chaplain to the National Guard, and Fintan did. And it was there his relationship with the military began. He said it was the best decision he ever made. He loved his time in the military. When his assignment in Lausanne was over, his next assignment was to St. Francis in Wiggins and St. Lucy in Lucedale, and there he inherited, as Tommy said, a herd of goats and donkeys. I don't think Fintan had ever seen a goat in his life. But he learned to love them, and he continued his collection of dogs there. Labs, Labrador dogs, then German Shepherds. But of course, while he was in Wiggins in that assignment, he was assigned to Camp Shelby. He was deployed full-time to Camp Shelby. A lovely, cushy number, because he could manage to go home every night to his own bed in Wiggins. He could go home and do the masses every weekend, and still full-time deployed for a year. Then, of course, he was deployed to Afghanistan for a year. And that was another wonderful experience. He loved the adrenaline he melted. And of course, while he was in Wiggins, Katrina hit, and that changed all of our lives. I had called him the night before, and I said, maybe I'll come up and stay the night with you, because I was in Ocean Springs at the time, a bit nervous and so close to the coast, but I never did go. But anyway, Katrina hit. Father John Kelly, who was the pastor of St. Michael's in Biloxi on the Point, showed up unannounced in Wiggins with his herd, Tilly, in the cage. So when I found out, my bed was already gone. In the aftermath of Katrina, we were in the dark, literally, on the coast. We had no communications, we were off the grid. Families in Ireland were nervous and anxious and frustrated and trying to get some information. And it turns out that Fintan had sent a text message to your mother back then, saying that Father Henry said he'd come up and spend the night. Then he sent another text message. I didn't know your mother was into text messages back then. 20 years ago, last month, we celebrated Katrina. Second message said Father Henry never showed up. I didn't know any of this was happening, but my brother, desperate to get some information, decided to track down your mother in Ballyfermot and call her. And she informed him this was what she had heard, that I was going to show up and didn't show up. So that was the only contact that they had. Anyway, Fintan's recollection, final recollection of Hurricane Katrina was, I survived Katrina, but I nearly didn't survive John Kelly. John Kelly went to his reward in the not too distant past. During his time in Afghanistan, he recruited many of us to assist him in the war effort. We had to send packages over to the troops. The post office service would offer a deal that you could send a black box. You could put whatever you like in it, as long as the weight didn't matter, for $12. And in exchange for my war efforts, he gave me the Operation Enduring Freedom certificate, presented in recognition of your support to the 184th Chaplain Section, signed by Fintan Kilmurray. His third and final assignment, of course, was here to Lumberton and Poplarville. But that wasn't the first assignment. He was assigned to another parish, or the talk was that he was going to be assigned to another parish when he was finished in Wiggins. But the first thing he did was get out and check it out. Drove around it and didn't like it. There was no place for dogs. None at all. Came by Lumberton, Poplarville, saw a lovely place in Lumberton for the dogs. That's what he wanted. And he has been there ever since. Very happy here with this assignment. And so his story with dogs continues, and these are no ordinary dogs. They're not mutts, they're not Heinz 57, they're not rescue dogs. These are pedigree dogs with papers. And their names are not ordinary. No ordinary dogs like Scruffy or Fido or Henry or Max or anything like that. Strange names, but evocative names, all evocative of something else. Names like Journey and Summer and Ichi. I think that's a Chinese word. Pharaoh, my favorite, the black lab that he buried outside the front door of Wiggins. Happy. And I'm not too sure. Another one called De Soto. De Soto, if you don't know, was a Spanish explorer who came and navigated the Mississippi River from north to south and came down to Baton Rouge and discovered the red stick on the river and called it Baton Rouge. Followed later on by Diocese, who discovered the Mississippi River from south to north. Fintan knew all about that. I'm sure the Soda would be very happy to know that Fintan had a dog named after. And one of his dogs presently is, I'm not too sure what she's called. I thought it was Solace, which is the Irish word for light. But other people say, no, it's not Solace, it's Solace, S-O-L-A-C-E. You're disagreeing with me. Solace is the Irish word for light. But all these dogs left wonderful memories. I loved Pharaoh of all. Fintan once took great delight in telling me a story that he told the kids of this parish, and he told the story that he once had a pet goldfish, which he probably never did. And the fish's name was Sam, and he said he loved Sam, and he fed Sam every day, but Sam eventually, like all goldfish, died. And he said to the kids, what do you do when a goldfish dies? He said, you flush him down the toilet. And he said, that's what I did, I flushed him down the toilet. And I went to bed very, very, very sad, he said. Next morning I got up and I was still sad. I went into the bathroom to brush my teeth and I turned on the faucet. And guess what came out of the faucet? And all the kids said, goldfish. I said, no, water came out of it. Goldfish never came out. So he loves spoiling the kids. Some of you know that Fintan also had a black book. Not a literal black book, but a black book in his mind. And he would often say to me, so-and-so, he's on page 5 of my black book. He also had a Christmas card list. And it was very easy to get taken off that Christmas card list. He would say, so-and-so, she's not on my Christmas card list this year. He also had a doghouse, not for the dogs, but for his friends who displeased him. And I ended up there. On the 20th of December, for something I said, or something I didn't say, for something I did or didn't do, I don't know. I got no Christmas card, December 2013. Instead, I got a postcard from Facebook, or a post from Facebook, of a bag of coal. No explanation. I responded, I wish I had 10 tons of that stuff. No explanation. I looked more carefully at the posting, and I noticed that Terry Dixon also got a similar one. I couldn't understand why you ended up in the doghouse, Terry, because he sent you so many photos and you weren't putting enough of them on the golf pine cabinet.
Well, these will be in there.
But the post said, this card went to Henry McInerney, Terry Dixon, and 6 others. I don't know who the 6 others were. I was thinking Bishop Kennedy. I don't think you were. I think you might have come close. I know some of your predecessors were saying. And I think Bishop Father Muko, I think you ended up in the doghouse for some time, for whatever you did, what you didn't say. But anyway, I eventually worked myself out of the doghouse. It took quite a while. We got back on track, but we're still on different frequencies. We always have been, but our paths cross regularly. But that's the story. You're all familiar with that. You all know how Fintan loved to cook steaks, and he cooked some of the best steaks I ever ate. Joe Ugo's familiar with that. Almost as good as yours, Tommy. And I think he would claim that he taught you how to cook steaks. But one night he had us over for steaks, and we had a friend from Ireland. And he did his best. He did a beautiful steak with wine, and he had his signature salad that I had never seen before. A 7-layer salad, if any of you are familiar with it. Not an ordinary salad, but laid out carefully in a big glass bowl. A layer of lettuce, a layer of cheese, a layer of green peas, and something else like that. So he had all of this set up in advance when we arrived in Wiggins. Well, my friend from Ireland, she decided to be helpful, and she saw the salad forks, and she decided to toss the salad. Fintan came in with the steaks and saw her tossing the salad. I thought he would lose his mind. But he got over it. So we have wonderful memories. One time we went to Graceland, 4 of us. We left Lizanne at 5:30 in the morning. Drove for 5.5 hours to Wiggins, to Memphis, visited Graceland, visited the Lorraine Motel, got back in our car, in his car at 5 p.m. in the evening, and drove back to Lausanne at 11:30 that night. We'll never do that again. Fintan also had a great time for the young priests, as Tommy said, very generous to the young Indian priests, and especially Father Jay, who just recently returned to India with bad health. He was also involved with Chinese exchange students, and I think Harry is here with us today with his parents. Harry is here. He's now a PhD student in Seattle. His parents are here visiting him. His parents were here during COVID, and they were grounded here and couldn't get back, and Fintan was very, very generous to them. They just invited him, Father Fintan, to join them for a week in Hawaii, but instead he chose to book a trip back to Ireland to visit his family. I returned from Ireland Monday a week ago. Fintan called me, wanted to do lunch. I had some tests in the Ocean Springs Hospital. He said, when you get finished there, call me. Wanted to do lunch in a seafood restaurant in Poplarville, where we had lunch last July, and he thoroughly enjoyed it. And I got there a little bit before him, a little few minutes earlier than him. I got my iced tea, and I was sitting there waiting for him, and he arrived, and the waitress came up, and she said, honey, can I get you something? And his response was, did you just call me honey? I'm his honey, we just got married. That picture is in Ireland before I was home from lunch that day. Fintan would be familiar with this. He liked to go out. I must go down to the sea again, to the lonely sea and the sky, and all I ask is a tall ship and a star to guide her by, and the wheels kick and the wind song, and the white sails shaking, and a grey mist on the sea's face, and a grey dawn breaking. Fintan is saying, will you hurry up? These people are getting hungry, I have places to go.